I'm your host, Joe Garcia, and today I'm going to be joined by our usual cast of characters here, our usual suspects. We're going to be joined by the one and only Vicky Vic. Vicky, how's it going?
Good. I'm doing well.
I bet you are, especially after a Spurs win, right?
Yes. Yes.
And we're also going to be joined by our other co host here, Rocky Garza Jr. Rocky, welcome. And how have you been, man? How's your week been going?
It's been going pretty good, Joe. I'm glad the Spurs got a W last night. Looked pretty good, 30 point plus win. So yeah. How about you? How's your week?
It's been going good. I've had a long week, just put it like that. My kids actually all got sick, and my youngest, we just found out, came down with COVID. He got tested
Oh
COVID
no.
positive. The other two did not test positive for COVID, but
Oh.
either way, we're self quarantining everybody, so I can't do anything for at least 14 days, even though I'm negative as well.
Oh wow.
So that's the way my week's been going. Been crazy. Even trying to
Oh.
find testing sites for everybody has been nuts. So,
Hmm.
stay
So
healthy out there,
wild right
everybody.
now.
Yeah, stay
Yeah.
healthy.
I hope y'all
So
feel
we're
better,
gonna go.
Joe.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's doing all right. Doesn't have a lot of any symptoms really. Just
Oh, that's
complains of
good.
just a scratchy throat, and he just finished getting the booster, and he's been vaccinated, so he's cool. You
Okay,
know,
good.
so
Yeah.
far so good. So I think he's gonna have mild symptoms, and he'll get over it pretty quick. Beauty of being a kid, being 16 years old.
Yes. Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
pretty resilient. So let's go ahead and get into it and talk about the San Antonio Spurs. So, specifically, what we're going to go ahead and start this off with is kind of a tribute. Today is a day that we've seen everybody on social media honoring the late Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi. It's the anniversary of their passing, and I was looking at all the tributes that they had for Kobe. A lot of great stuff that everybody's been putting out there on social media. But one of the things that we're going to talk about right now is we're going to talk about Kobe Bryant and some of his best performances against the San Antonio Spurs. And full disclosure here, I saw an article that I kind of liked and I shared it with you guys as well. It was off of
Yeah.
Clutch Points. So we're kind of looking at this article as a reference, but I was telling Rocky too, I remember a lot of games that I saw in person uh, with the Lakers and the Spurs, specifically in the Alamo Dome. And that was back in the day where the fans would get rowdy. That's when the raza was in full effect out there, And I remember one game in particular where it was a blowout loss. The Lakers were just blowing out the Spurs, and Kobe was having a good game. So was Shaq. And then all of a sudden, Monty Williams, who was a member of the San Antonio Spurs, he got into it. I guess there was some trash talking going on the court, and it just like this whole brawl ensued. And the AT&T Center was quiet for the most part because nothing else was really happening. But that right there, I remember Kobe, Shaq, they have the iconic pictures, everybody there fighting amongst each other. And it was all started with Monty Williams, who is now the head coach of the Phoenix Suns. So just a little trip down memory lane. But I think one of the games that I kind of remember specifically from Kobe was the game that he had. It was kind of like his breakout game in the playoffs against the Spurs in 1999. This was the coming out party, so to speak, for one Kobe Bryant. I mean, it wasn't Kobe esque numbers like too much fanfare, um, but it was his first introduction, to, I guess, to Spurs fans of what this young budding star was capable of doing. And I just remember that game specifically. It was the 1999 Western Conference semifinals. And Kobe, he ended the night with 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists and 48% shooting. The Lakers lost, but that was kind of a statement game against the San Antonio Spurs, being led by one Tim Duncan at that point. So I think that was really a really big statement game on Kobe's part. We'll start with you,
Hmm.
Vicky. That's one that I remember specifically with the young Kobe Bryant. What is a game that you kind of remember that Kobe and the Spurs got into it? Maybe it was in the finals, maybe it was a regular season game. What do you remember?
It was actually, well, okay, so any playoff games with the Spurs, I always remember, and it's just like that three-peat period between 99 and 2002. I just remember like the Lakers being that wall that they couldn't get through. But I do remember specifically It was game 5, I guess, of the 2003 Spurs championship run, and I think they lost that game. They had the chance to win, and they ended up, I think it was the Father's Day game, and I don't know. Honestly, Kobe did well, like he always did. And I don't remember the stats on that game, but I remember there was this is like I used to get so frustrated because he would get away with like kind of like almost a double dribble really often. And there was one of those at the end of the game, and I was like, no, they need to call that. How are they not calling that?
It
And
was the
that just
long Euro step.
yes, yeah, it really basically was. And it was like far out, like past the 3-point line. And I remember getting so frustrated with that. And it's just, it's so sad losing him so early. And I know that I probably resonate with a lot of Spurs fans. Kobe was like the anti-Spur in our hearts. Like growing up, it was like, oh, Kobe, we got to get through Kobe. And it was just this like, we knew he was so good and he was the one that they had to get through. So it's really sad that his talent, he was still amazing even though he'd retired, and I miss him still. My husband's a huge, huge Kobe fan. So yeah, today is kind of a bummer because of that. But those games, I just remember being like, ugh, Kobe, like, I can't stand him. And then now I'm like, as an adult, I can appreciate that he was a really, really amazing player.
Yeah, I think that's the consensus though with Spurs fans. They hated when he played against us,
Yes.
but there was always this mutual respect between the two.
Hmm.
They respected what he was doing because they knew he right away he was a superstar and he was a special type
Right.
of player. Just like, we knew Tim Duncan was our, special type of player along with Tony and Manu. So there was respect
Exactly.
there, but we hated when we lost against the Lakers, not we
Yeah.
per se, but San Antonio Spurs fans hated when the team would lose against, the Lakers because it was a
Yeah.
heated rivalry. Rocky, what do you specifically remember? Any games that come to light to you against, the Spurs and Kobe?
There's no really specific game I have. It's just that, like Vicky kind of said, that we knew as Spurs fans that we had to go through Kobe and the Lakers, and it was just always so memorable watching at any time, appreciating Kobe, and everyone hated Kobe, and now, like, unfortunately that he passed away, you appreciate what he did and just how great he was.
Mhm.
I think I remember a couple years ago when he was doing an interview, he had said the Spurs were a reason why they don't have a lot of championships, and that just shows how much respect Kobe had for the Spurs. And it just shows how great that the big three was, and how much spoiled the Spurs fans were.
Yeah,
Exactly.
one of the things that we kind of forget too is like one of the other games that I remember specifically was in 2001 when again we were
Oh
in the
yeah.
Western Conference Finals and the Lakers
Ooh,
swept us. It was a complete sweep. That was hard for Spurs fans to follow, or swallow,
yeah.
should I say, because we say us. I don't want to say us. I mean the team, the fans, the Spurs
Mhm.
fans. But Kobe had 45 points, 10 rebounds, 3
Mm.
assists, a steal, a block, and the Lakers got the sweep over the San Antonio Spurs by a final score 104-90. And they went on to win their second championship of a three-peat that year. So a
Mhm.
little insult to injury for the San Antonio Spurs fan base themselves. And that was a hard pill to swallow, and
Yeah.
it even we have even more memories coming out of that. But we have a comment right now. Uh M Easy's watching us and he says 2001, I think the first two games in SA, he killed us. He's not lying, because
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. Kobe went off on us. There was a statement game because he remembers what happened to the Lakers when the Spurs beat them to go on and
Yeah.
win their championship. So, we beat a team, we beat the team. Well, not we, but the Spurs beat the team, the Lakers, and then the Lakers come back and they beat the San Antonio Spurs,
Yeah.
So anything else
Oh.
that you specifically remember? Was it any other memory that you might have had in the, either the Alamo Dome or the AT&T Center, Rocky?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's just watching. I as a kid, like, it's so hard to recall like those Kobe moments because I didn't get into basketball like
Mhm.
really, really into it till '03. So that's why I couldn't really recall the early years. I mean, looking back when I did my research, I'm like, oh, this is what happened, X, Y, and Z. So it's just hard to really recall, but it's just me seeing Kobe on TV against the Spurs was always a treat to us. Well, to me, especially as a fan. And I always loved to see what Shaq and Kobe could do because they were probably the most dynamic duo ever in history to play. And it just blows my mind of how many more titles they would have got if they would have stayed together. But I guess the most memorable Kobe moment I ever had was when he dropped 81. And that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, everybody remembers that. And I think one of the other games that I don't remember too, it wasn't against the San Antonio Spurs. It was just his farewell game. You know, his family was there watching him, and he was able to drop 60 points at this later part of his career. You know, and then you see some of his teammates come out and congratulate him. You know, you saw Lamar Odom. I think Shaq was there, and some of his other teammates were there as well to congratulate him. So it was a very special moment for him. And I remember him just kind of like, you know, putting the mic down in the middle of the court, and he's like, Mamba out, you know. So those are things that you're going to remember. And I think a lot of the other players, knowing that this was his last year, there was a thing where they would all come out and make sure they would say hi to him and congratulate him, and you know, just wish him well on his exit, you know, from the game. So it was a shame that, like you all said, that his life was cut so short, because he still had a lot more to give back to not only the world of basketball, but also to the world of the performing arts, because he had also helped produce an animated short that got nominated and won a Grammy, you know, an Oscar, should I say. So that was something too, you know. He was going to delve in the world of, you know, the arts, the entertainment. So he was a well-rounded figure, you know. It was going beyond the world of basketball. So we lost a good one in Kobe, you know. And we have another
comment.
Another comment. It says, EM Easy says, in 2003 Game 5, that we won when Robert Horry missed the threes at the end. We blew a huge second half lead, and Kobe was hitting some unbelievable shots to bring them back. That was scary. It was scary. I remember that
game. I'm trying to figure out which game I'm thinking of. It was 2003. It must have been game 3.
He had 36 points. I think that's the game he's talking about. It was a Game 5 performance. Kobe finished with 36 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and the Spurs 96-94 they was a victory at the time. Yeah. He shot 5-11.
Game 4. They lost on Father's Day.
Yeah, that's the Father's Day game.
The series.
Yes.
Ugh,
that was the infamous Father's Day game.
Only way to say it.
Yeah. And the last game that I remember was going to be the farewell duel of the heated Spurs and Lakers rivalry. This is back in 2008, the Western Conference Finals. Kobe clinched the first finals ticket in 4 years, the Staples Center, with the dominant stat line of 39 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals on 53% shooting against the Spurs in that conference final. That was in 2008. So, you know, that's the last time that these two teams are going to meet in the playoffs, with, you know, a Tim Duncan led Spurs team and the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq and all that, you know. So it was one of those memories that things that you're always going to remember about this heated rivalry. So it's good to kind of walk down the lane and remember one, you know, Kobe Bryant. But let's go ahead and look at Easy says that dunk on Jaren Jackson 2000 Christmas Day. I remember that one. I remember that. And a lot of people forget about Jaren Jackson. You know, he would always have those big performances in the playoffs.
Jaren Jackson.
And now we have his son in the NBA with the Grizzlies.
Junkyard Dog.
Yeah. We have Jaren Jackson Jr. now playing for the Memphis Grizzlies. So it comes full circle.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move on here and talk about the Rising Stars Challenge. This was a topic that Rocky actually brought up. So we're going to go ahead and let him lead here. He was the one that was kind of saying, hey, the Rising Stars Challenge is having some changes made in the way that the game is going to be played. So Rocky, go ahead and let us know, what is it that's changing in the Rising Stars Challenge?
So usually they'll have a Team Road versus Team USA, but this year for the first time, it's going to be broken up into a pool of 28 players, which is 28 rookies, sophomores, plus 4 NBA G and G League players. And it's going to be like a tournament style, kind of like a lot of people and Adam Silver was preaching. They're also going to have the Clorox Clutch Challenge. Is to be a shooting competition where each team is going to be given a certain amount of time and they have to achieve making shots. So it's kind of different in a way. I mean, it's kind of cool to me because you're going to have team A or team A versus team B, team C versus team D. And it's going to be a real mix-up. But it's more important. You're going to see some G League players make the game this year, so that you maybe can give them a breakout game and maybe they possibly make a team.
Yeah, and that's the thing they were talking about. Okay, well, they're going to have players from the G League, right? So
Yeah.
could we possibly see a Josh Primo, or a Joe Wieskamp
Yeah.
be inserted into the Rising Stars Challenge? If that was the case, that would really make all Spurs fans jump up and down for joy, because they'd be excited beyond belief that Primo is going ahead and being representing, should I say, the San
Yeah.
Antonio Spurs in the Rising Stars Challenge. So hopefully, maybe we'll see something like that happen. But it's going to be
Yeah, it's
interesting nonetheless. And I
interesting.
think this is an interesting change, because now that they're moving more to a tournament style, I think the games are going to be even more exciting. Before, it was just one game, they play it and that was it. This way, you're going
Yeah.
to see a lot of these younger stars get some time to shine, and the fans, should I say, are going to be able to see a lot of this young talent. So that's something that's really exciting when you think about it. Vicky, what are your thoughts on these changes?
I think it's cool. I like to see them switch it up. I like that there's a larger pool that they're going to be pulling from. So, yeah, there's opportunities for Primo or, other rookies out there to either make it. I don't know. I'm thinking there's no real guide about if they're a G League player who's also a rookie. I think there's, a better option for them to make it. And in cases where, yeah, you've got I see someone mentioned Vassell. Yeah. Oh,
It's
Josh.
Josh.
Hi,
Josh,
Josh.
someone. Now he's someone that I used to know, Vicky.
Yeah. No, I didn't read his name. I just saw the comment.
Some guy.
No, hi,
Vicky.
Josh. But yeah, so then you have opportunities for Vassell to get there. I think when maybe he would have been overlooked if they were just picking a team of only sophomores. And, I think there's a bit more of a chance for some of those guys that would have been overlooked to get in there. So it's cool. I hope we get to see a couple of Spurs maybe, but who knows? Who
That would be
knows? They're going to
something if we
announce
get
it
to
in
see him.
February. So
Yeah. So shout out to you, Josh Paredes. He says Vassell is the most likely choice as a sophomore, in my opinion. Too many rookies with bigger roles than Primo, aka Promo.
Promo.
I love that about Josh. He's
yeah,
quick to go ahead and pick out the typos, and he does not
yes,
forget.
yes.
I'm still waiting
Oh,
for
I
Josh
love
to break some news to us here, via Twitter or something. We're still waiting for the infamous Paredes pipe bomb.
that.
Rudy's the one that gave that to him. He goes, "Oh,
Yes.
we got a pipe bomb, a Paredes pipe bomb coming through." So
Aw.
either way, I'm looking forward to the
Yeah.
Rising Stars Challenge with all these changes going in. Hopefully, the game's going to be a little bit more exciting, and it's going to mean a little bit more, and we're going to see a lot more of the young talent on full display for the NBA fans. Oh, look, I do have a pipe bomb, but it's in a Paul
It's a
pipe
ball.
bomb. Paul. So we're going to go ahead and move on and talk about the return of one DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan is making his return to the At&t Center this Friday, and this is his first, return to San Antonio since he joined the Chicago Bulls. And the interesting part of this is we're going to ask the same question. What type of reception do you think he's going to receive? Because a lot of Spurs fans, I believe, they didn't appreciate DeMar DeRozan when he was here with the San Antonio Spurs. I for one, appreciated everything he did every single night, even though it may not have been, let's say the game did not swing in favor of the Spurs fans. It could have been a loss, or they were always, harping on him because he was not able to hit a clutch shot, at the end of regulation or whatnot. And that really wasn't his fault. It was the way he was utilized, So I hope that they give him a standing ovation. I believe he deserves it. No fault of his own for being here in San Antonio. He was nothing more of a true professional on display here. He just played the game, gave you everything he had, and was just never complained. Just went out there and performed.
Yeah.
Rocky, what do you think? What do you think the reception is going to be when the Spurs fans see one DeMar DeRozan return to the AT&T Center?
I think it's going to be a pretty welcoming reception for him. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong for the team. He did all he could. I don't think it's going to be big as last week's, where they give a big ovation for Patty. And it's so for LaMarcus. I mean, I know LaMarcus is loved and hated, but Patty's the star here, and everyone loves Patty. But I think it's going to be a really good reception for him, a real good tribute. I expect DeMar to have a really big game. He's taken on a larger role with Lonzo Ball out, and I just feel like that little extra edge of him being here is going to motivate him to have a big game. And then we're going to see a nice debate among Spurs Twitter of why DeMar should have stayed.
Oh,
Yes.
Lord. Vicky, we got a Paredes pipe bomb here. Josh says, Becky and Sangalia cleared protocols, but now Chip has entered. So Chip England
Yes.
now has entered the health and safety protocols. So what type of reception do you think DeMar DeRozan will receive from the San Antonio Spurs fan base? And do you think the Spurs are going to do an amazing job with his tribute video?
Yes, I think they will. I think they'll do a great job with it. Not as amazing as Patty's, but because
Oh, my
Patty
goodness.
Mills was here forever. He was from the last championship team. I mean, Patty
I think
was.
Vicky has like a Patty Mills tattoo somewhere.
No, he's just the last connection to the old Spurs. It's sad. It's really sad. But I think that DeMar will get a good reception. I think people will. People did appreciate him here. I think most of the fans knew that he couldn't do everything and make this team, what it needed to be. There are some fans that are frustrated with it, and yes, I think that Spurs Twitter is going to be like all over the place about it.
They're going to be fighting. It's a civil war every day, Vicky.
Yes. But no, I think overall, in person, he's going to get a nice reception. And, he deserves it. I think it kind of just wasn't a good fit for him here. The team wasn't, they didn't gel with him in the way that he needs to play. And obviously, he's found that now and is doing really well. I think he's going to have a pretty good game. Same like Rocky said, he's going to do well. And I think he'll be pretty hyped being here. I think players always kind of play really well when they play against their previous teams, even though this wasn't like a malicious type situation or anything. But I think he'll, want to show off a little bit to the guys and to the coaches.
Kind of show what they're missing out on?
A little, or even just like, hey, friendly competition kind of thing. I don't think that there was any bad blood or anything going on. So I think it's not like when Kawhi, came back.
Oh,
I don't think anything will ever be like.
Why do you got to bring up
like
old
that.
stuff for, Vicky?
No, but I think, for the most part, I think people were okay and maybe even happy to see him leave. So I think they'll be nice to him being back. It's not like he, threw dirt in our face or anything. So
Yeah. We do have a comment from Savos DJ watching us from YouTube. He said, I liked him. They'll give him his respect, but it looks like he slowed down the growth of DJ DeJounte Murray while he was here, I believe is what he's referring to. It says with him leaving, worked out for both teams, so I'd have to agree with that.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Well, if DeMar DeRozan was still here, he'd get a lot more touches, so that would actually reduce the amount of points that, DeJounte Murray would be getting. I don't think we'd see him with nearly as many triple doubles this season, so good for him. It's good for growth. We knew this was going to happen, like a Band-Aid being pulled off. All the fan base wanted the young core to get their shine. Well, this is what happens when you get a young core out there. A lot of inexperience. This is a rebuilding year. It's a growing year. So we'll just go ahead and see how this season plays out. But either way, looking forward to the NBA draft lottery that's coming up. Hopefully the lottery balls roll in our favor, and hopefully we get a top 5 pick. It's 5 or bust, top 5 or bust for me.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and move on here, and let's talk about one DeJounte Murray. DeJounte's game has been the saving grace for the San Antonio Spurs fan base. He has had a stellar year. and he's been flirting with triple doubles galore. He's been a triple double machine. I think right now we look at the stats as they currently stand. He has 13 regular season triple doubles. He has one triple double to beat or best the triple double record right now for the San Antonio Spurs, which is held by one David Robinson. They're both tied right now, or going to be tied if DeJounte gets another triple double tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies at 14. So DeJounte, as it currently stands, needs two more triple doubles to break David Robinson's record. So the way that it breaks down is DeJounte this season has had a total of 9 triple doubles. So he's had a total of 6 triple doubles here at home and 3 on the road. So it looks like he does play better here at the At&t Center, despite what San Antonio Spurs fans think. So the numbers don't lie. Rocky, what have you thought about DeJounte Murray's performance as far as him being able to put up these amazing numbers, especially the triple doubles? And do you think he's going to wind up beating David Robinson's, record of 14 triple doubles, this season?
Well, first off, he's really surprised me this year. I know there's a lot of fans that kind of had some hate for him coming into this year, but as you said, with DeMar leaving, it really opened up his touches, and he solidly improved his game overall. Has he reached his ceiling? I don't know. I can't be the one to judge his work ethic. He could have, or he can keep growing. Personally, I think he's shown this season specifically he's top 10 point guard. There's been a lot of injuries this season, but he's showing that he's one of the best point guards in the league, and that's a big improvement from his rookie year. But I think he will beat David Robinson's numbers. I personally believe that they're going to be losing more games, so he'll probably put up more stats because they're going to be playing from behind. But I just think he's only going to get better from here, and we'll just have to see where the team goes from here.
What about you, Vicky? Do you think DeJounte is going to wind up tying David Robinson's 14 triple-double mark probably within the next couple of days? If it was Vicky would say, I guarantee he's going to do it tonight. He's going to beat the record. But I'm not going to speak for you, Vicky. What do you have to say in regards to this?
I don't know if he'd do it tonight, but he will. I think within the next week, I do think he will. He's gonna do it, and he's gonna end his career whenever that is with a lot more. I mean, he's just got a really good knack of doing it because of his unique style and also his amazingly long arms. I mean, he's able to get rebounds in a really awesome way. He's able to, his passing skills have improved so much. I think it's amazing that he's going to pass David Robinson up eventually, and it's going to happen. He's going to set a really nice, higher standard for future Spurs. But I think what's also amazing and is starting to gain a little bit of traction is the fact that he's second in the league. Well, I guess fourth, fifth technically, but tied for second in the league with, I think, Russell Westbrook and James Harden, just behind Jokic, who has, I think, 11 for the season. So, that in itself is really impressive. And I think that he deserves a lot more praise, way more praise than he's getting nationally across the league. But I get it. The Spurs aren't winning. He's doing really great, but there are other teams out there that are doing better with players that are, also making impacts. But yeah, as far as his triple doubles go, he's going to get it. I can't say exactly when. I don't know if it'll be tonight, just because, tonight's going to be a little bit of a tough matchup for them, but especially for him. But I think that it'll come this week for sure. Well, before next week.
Yeah. So I got to go ahead and plug our sponsor here, which is DraftKings. Make sure you go ahead and download the app that is available for both iOS or Apple devices and Android devices. And make sure you use the promo code here, TBPN, to get some extra goodies there. Again, make sure you go ahead and download the app for both Android and iPhone users, and make sure you use the promo code TBPN. So as we start moving forward here, enough of the DeJounte Murray talk. We know he's a great player in a small market. Unfortunately for the San Antonio Spurs fan base, he's getting recognition. How likely is he to get into the NBA All-Star game? We're going to find out here pretty soon. Maybe he gets voted in still by the coaching staff, the coaching department and also the players and the media, so we'll see what happens there, but he's having a stellar year nonetheless. And as we go ahead and move forward here, we're going to talk about the San Antonio Spurs recent game against the Houston Rockets. Go ahead and go over some of the numbers and recap the overall game itself. So the San Antonio Spurs did get the dub over the Houston Rockets by a final score of 134-104. And this was an amazing game if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, because the Spurs got back to their winning ways and in grand fashion too against a heated rival, the Houston Rockets. And I'm looking at the quarters, the scoring by quarters. So the Spurs scored 34 points in the first quarter compared to the Rockets 23. Second quarter, the Spurs scored 32 compared to the Rockets 28. Third quarter was a great quarter for the San Antonio Spurs as they scored 39 points compared to the Rockets 23. Fourth and final quarter, though, the Spurs scored 29 points and the Rockets scored 30. And I'm looking at points in the paint. This is always the number that we're always looking at. The Spurs actually had a better production than the Houston Rockets as they outscored them in the paint 61-45, which is great. I'm also looking at some of the other turnovers here that the San Antonio Spurs had. And it looks like the San Antonio Spurs points off of turnovers. It looks like the Rockets had 15 and the Spurs scored 16 points off of those 15 turnovers by the Rockets. The Spurs had 13 turnovers and the Rockets capitalized on that by scoring 23 points off of those turnovers. So we got to, the San Antonio Spurs got to take better care of the ball in that regard. And we're going to go ahead and go to the game charts here because one of the other things that I like to look at is the 3-point shooting. How well did San Antonio shoot the ball from beyond the arc? And they actually fared better than the Rockets, shooting the ball 37.5% from beyond the arc when you compare it to the Rockets, who shot 26.5%. Free throw shooting, the Spurs were perfect from the stripe, even though they did not go very often. I think they only went 6 times to the free throw line, and they were perfect 100% compared to the Rockets, who shot 68% on the night. Second chance points, that was in favor of the Rockets by 1 point as they outscored the Spurs in second chance points 19-18. This was a fast-paced game, as we saw by the fast break points. The Houston Rockets scored 19 fast break points compared to the Spurs 15. Overall, it was a good game, good production for the San Antonio Spurs. And we're going to go ahead and recognize some of the players of the game. We had several players that scored in double digits. We had Keldon Johnson, who finished the night with 16 points. Doug McDermott, 15 points. We had Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl's been great this season. Second most consistent player, 18 points. Then we go down and we see DeJounte Murray again, 19 points. Devin Vassell's 12 points. We had Drew Eubanks getting out there, making some noise with 13 points. Trey Jones, 14 points on the night. And Thaddeus Young, in garbage minutes, managed to score 12 points, and he only played 12 minutes, so he was scoring a point a minute. That just increased his trade value. So all in all, it was a good overall team performance by the San Antonio Spurs. Vicky, what did you think of the San Antonio Spurs matchup against the Rockets and them getting this big victory? What did it mean to you?
It was nice. It was kind of expected, I think. I mean, okay, so maybe not like the complete blowout, but I expected them to win. But it was nice to see them playing well. It was one of those games where everybody was kind of having a better night as opposed to a not so great night. And, watching players like Thaddeus in those, even though it was garbage minutes, watching him play and doing things, I think it was just great. Seeing that for his own sake, for team morale, and, not even thinking about what his future holds, just being able to see so many players touch the court was really nice. And the 82 points in the paint was just, that's super impressive. I think I read somewhere that that's tied for the most this season. And that's just great, breaking these kinds of little, not records, but I think since 2000, that's the second most the Spurs have had in the paint, and that's just a really good confidence builder for them. They're young, they were playing against a team that's also fairly young for the most part, and I think it was a good booster for them, just sort of a good springboard, even though they've got tonight. But I mean, if they
We're
can
going to
get
get
some
into
wins
that
like
too.
that. Yes, yes. If they can get wins like that and, prove to themselves that they can do it, I think it's just really good for them on a personal level and as a team to be able to grow and see what they're capable of. So it was
Yeah,
a nice performance.
I'd like to correct myself too. I misquoted. Points in the paint. The Spurs scored 82 against compared to the Rockets, who scored 58. It was the bench points where the Spurs scored
Yes.
61 points compared to the Rockets bench at 45. So our bench had a better performance. Well, the San Antonio Spurs bench, should I say. Rocky, what did you think about this game? With the Spurs besting the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, I have to agree with Vicky. It was expected. I'm just glad they didn't let Eric Gordon look like Michael Jordan out there again. He only finished with 7 points that night. But it was a really good game. It was one of those games where everyone was contributing. And it was a real good sight to see. But then it is a good victory because obviously
McDermott.
I was playing the highlight here in the background.
I thought that was me. I was like,
Oh no.
But it was a real good game. I have to really agree, and it's going to boost their confidence only more. They do have a tough game tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies and one of the top point guards in the league against Ja Morant. But I'm glad to see them get a victory.
Yeah, get back to their winning ways. So let's go ahead and show this highlight. This is the highlight that a lot of Spurs fans, including one Rocky here, was wanting to see, and that is Dougie McBuckets and his slam dunk. He looks so graceful just there, soaring through the air. Maybe we can get Rocky and Rudy to kind of reenact this, in the studio sometime.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'll dunk on Rudy easily.
Oh my goodness. I think
That
Rudy
was
would take that as an
nice.
insult. He's going to take that as an insult now. He's going to want to get some revenge on you. So it was a good highlight, one of the best highlights of the night. One of the highlights of the night that a lot of Spurs fans really enjoyed watching over and over again. So as we start going ahead and bringing this show to a close, we're going to go ahead and give some stats out right now. We're going to go ahead and show some head-to-head stats, or not show, but talk about the head-to-head stats, because we have the San Antonio Spurs that will be facing the Memphis Grizzlies tonight, and all eyes are going to be on the point guard matchup, which is one DeJounte Murray versus Ja Morant. And I already saw the discussions on Spurs Twitter, and they were not good. I already saw people already giving DeJounte a hard time and saying that Ja owns DeJounte, So I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's have a debate here, and let's show the stats so we can go ahead and show what the overall numbers look like. And going head to head, with Ja Morant and DeJounte Murray here. And it's not that good. It's not going to be. It's not going to be good.
I was like,
you said I'm gonna say the data. I'm just the messenger. I'm just the messenger here. Ja Morant has only been in the league a couple of years. 2020 through 2022 is what the head-to-head comparisons are. And DeJounte over here starting in, from 2017 through 2022. Okay. NBA seasons here. DeJounte's had 3. Ja Morant has 3. DeJounte has 5. Playoffs, Ja Morant has 1 playoff, appearance. DeJounte has 2. Honors and awards. They're both all defensive team, selections. They both have 1 nomination there. Regular season stats. Oh, Vicky. It's not looking good. Ja Morant, stats per game. And we're talking about points per game. He's averaging 19.9. DeJounte's only averaging 11.5. Rebounds per game. Ja Morant.
That's DeJounte's whole career, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Ja Morant has 4.4. DeJounte has 5.8. Assists per game. This was surprising to me. Ja Morant has 7.2 is what he's averaging all time against DeJounte. DeJounte has 4.4. Steals per game. Ja Morant averages 1.0. DeJounte 1.4. Blocks per game. They're both dead even at 0.3. Now, total points, when you're comparing the matchups between the two, Ja Morant has scored a total of 3,309 points. DeJounte Murray has scored a total of 3,384. Surprising. Okay, now we're looking at total rebounds. John Morant, 726. DeJounte, 1,718. Total assist between the two during these matchups. 1,200. DeJounte, 1,301. Total steals. John Morant, 161 compared to DeJounte's 403. Total blocks. John Morant, 45. DeJounte, 77. And the total amount of games, 166 compared to DeJounte Murray's 295. So we're showing overall numbers comparing the both of them there, but I mean,
I mean,
at the
I
end,
feel
at
like
the-
sorry, I feel like we'd have to compare DeJounte this season to Jean Morant though to get a really good comparison. Because when we're like looking at all of DeJounte's career, he has not been the DeJounte of today. And like, I think that's what people are forgetting, even like, everyone out there, analysts, everybody, they look at DeJounte Murray. It's like, oh yeah, he's been playing for 5 years and he hasn't done much. And then you look at this year and it's like all of a sudden he's had a chance to play. I think, like we said, because DeMar DeRozan isn't here anymore. So yeah, I feel like the numbers may be skewed.
Yeah, just a little bit, because John's been given that freedom from the start, and
Yes.
Murray's barely been given this freedom. His stats don't lie, but Ja is a better point guard than DeJounte because he's been leading his team, and his team's up top in the West. But it's more closer than people think. It's going to be a pretty solid matchup tonight between the two.
I'm excited for it. It's going to be good.
it's
But that's a
gonna
lot
be
of deep
good one.
diving you did, Joe. That's really
Yeah,
interesting. I did
I'm
not
just
realize a lot of that.
yeah, I'm just going, based on averages, and I'm also quoting some of the
Yeah.
stats based on their careers, and showing the
Mhm.
differences, in contrast between the two players overall based on head to head, because I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things that Spurs fans kind of hone in on. Well, how good does he look when he goes up 1-on-1 against John Morant?
Yes.
They're different types of players with different skill sets,
Yeah.
and it's not always going to be conducive to what Spurs fans think
Right.
is going to be DeJounte getting the best of John Morant. They're always going to see just the numbers, bottom line. This is what happens. But you're not factoring in the wins and losses,
Right.
because DeJounte might have had a bad game or a poor performance from the fans' eyes. Doesn't mean that he still didn't help his team get the win,
Right.
So at the end of the day, I think that's what really matters the most beyond the head to head matchups. So that's something for Spurs
Exactly.
fans to think about a little bit.
Ah! Who do you think's going to win though tonight? Who do you
Tonight,
think will win the
oh
matchup?
man, this is the thing. When you look and see what the Spurs have, the quality of the team right now, and they're very young and inexperienced. I think a lot of teams throughout the league have honed in on one thing. If you can go ahead and put the clamps on one DeJounte Murray, your best player, that kind of exposes the Spurs as for who they are. And if you do that, because DeJounte is going to be the facilitator of the offense, and you can put the clamps on him, that's going to kind of slow the game down, for one. And the
Right.
Spurs are horrible in a half court set. Second, what's going to happen is they're going to start reverting to hero ball, taking bad shots, trying to force the issue. And then what happens is that you go 5 to 6 minutes with the team going through without even scoring a bucket, and if
Yep.
you do that against a very good team, such as, a defensive team, such as the Memphis Grizzlies, it's a recipe for disaster because the Spurs want to get up and down the court. But if they play this methodical, slow game, getting in these half court sets with the Memphis Grizzlies, that's not conducive to the Spurs getting a win. And unfortunately, tonight, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I foresee that the Memphis Grizzlies are going to make an effort, a concerted effort, to go ahead and put the clamps on when DeJounte Murray is going to have a rough go of it. I think he might be maybe scoring in 13, 15 points. And it's going to be a hard 13 or 15 points. And I think the Spurs are going to try to keep it a little bit competitive for the first half. But in the third quarter, I think that's when the wheels fall off. And there's going to be some distance there between the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs. So unfortunately, I don't see the Spurs getting the win, even though I would like them to get the win. Can you imagine what this would say about the
so
San
good.
Antonio Spurs squad if they were able to push on through and get a quality win against, the Memphis Grizzlies? That's just my thoughts. Rocky, what do you think?
I think it's going to be a pretty high scoring affair, and it's going to be a really good battle between the two. But I think the Memphis is going to pull it out tonight. The Spurs. It was a good game last night, but Memphis is a different cat, and they're a pretty solid team all around. So it's going to be a tough matchup tonight.
Yeah, going to be a rough matchup. And Texas Taurus is watching us. Thank you for watching us, by the way. He's watching from YouTube. He says, I think DJ walks when his contract is up. And then he puts, Savo's DJ also says, I think Lonnie leaves after this season. I'm kind of with Savo's on that one. Yeah. I don't think the Spurs are going to go ahead and extend him. I think he's going to be able to kind of walk and, test the waters in free agency. And he's going to garner a price tag that's going to be too high for the Spurs to want to match. Texas Taurus also says Lonnie for sure, meaning that he believes he's going to walk. He also says probably will go to the Heat or Orlando. Who knows? Better than kind of staying here and going with another one of our rivals in the Western Conference. We'll see what happens. Lonnie has been the enigma to me, even with all his speed, athleticism. He just hasn't put things together, and I think that the Spurs were trying to bring along Lonnie in the wrong direction. I don't think his forte was always going to be an offensive weapon. I think if they would have worked with him a little bit more and try to develop him into a 3-and-D type of player, that would have been more conducive to Lonnie actually finding his niche here with the team. Unfortunately, because of his poor three-point shooting, it harbors him from becoming a good, solid 3-and-D kind of player. You do have Chip England, but at this point, I mean, the Spurs should have kind of developed that a little bit sooner, in his development rather than later. At this point, I think you just kind of have to kind of say it's been real, but you haven't really developed in what we want. Tough decisions have to be made. And unfortunately, I think they go ahead and let him walk. But that's just my opinion. What do you think, Vicky?
About Lonnie?
The Spurs and Lonnie, yeah.
I agree. I don't think that he is willing to fit into the Spurs the way that the Spurs want him to fit at this point. And I also don't know that he can, like you're saying. I think we see glimpses of it here and there, and it's kind of been this sort of like rough ordeal finding his, real, what do you call it? Like real value on this team. And it's kind of disappointing because of how much has been invested into him and his development. And I think that he's just not really showing up in the way that he would need to at this point.
He's too inconsistent. I think that's the problem. He's just been too inconsistent.
Yeah. And when you've got players that are coming out more consistently, like Vassell, even for being just a second-year player, I think that there's just not really an option to keep him. So yeah, I think Lonnie goes. I do not think DeJounte does. So I think DeJounte is sticking around.
Yeah. I think the Spurs will wind up extending DeJounte. You pretty much have to. I think he's going to be one of these pieces that's going to be instrumental to the Spurs, moving forward. Because of his experience, and not only that, but his ability to run the offense. That's one of the things that you absolutely need. It's a must-have if you're going to go ahead and surround, not DeJounte, but maybe the next San Antonio Spurs superstar with some of these core pieces. And I think DeJounte is going to be one of those core pieces, So we'll see what happens in the upcoming draft. But as we go ahead and bring this show to a close here, Texas Taurus says, Thad Young traded yet? No, he has not been traded yet. They still have all the way up until the deadline, which is going to be, I believe, right after the All-Star break. But at this point, if the Spurs aren't going to trade him and they wind up keeping him after the trade deadline, I think that signals one very big thing that Spurs fans do not want to hear. And that is they're going to wind up buying him out and letting him walk for nothing. The thing is you're trying to trade that and he garners a hefty price tag as far as his salary goes. You're going to go ahead and trade him to another team and they're going to have to pick up, I believe, was it a $10 or $13 million that they're paying him?
Yeah.
They're going to have to pick that up. But what are you going to get in return? The San Antonio Spurs wind up getting some picks. That would be a win in my opinion. But the numbers have to work out for both teams. And with the amount of money that, Thad Young garners, I don't think there's a lot of interest there from a lot of other teams, and unfortunately, maybe buying him out might be the best possible recourse for the San Antonio Spurs, even though Spurs fans don't want to hear that. So
Right.
it is what it is. It's part of the business. But
Mhm.
we'll see what happens. We still got some time, so I'm hopeful maybe a deal will get done. But as we bring the show to a close, we're going to go ahead and start showing where you can follow these great guys and gals here on social media. So we'll start with you, Vicky. If you want to go ahead and interact with the Vicky Vic, make sure you go and follow her on the Twitters at the Vicky Vics. And if you want to go ahead and talk
Yay.
sports with one Rocky Garza here, make sure you follow him on Twitter at Rocks Rocks Jr. on the
Rocks
Twitters.
Why is my name
Rocks.
spelled like that though, Joe? Roki?
Rocks.
Oh, Roki.
You put Roki Garza G. Come on, Joe.
Rosie.
Oh, I did. I just see it. I just see it now. Roki.
Rosie.
Let me fix that for you. Hold on.
You put Roki.
Look, I'm going to fix it for you right here, live
At least you didn't put
on
Rocco.
the broadcast.
Rocco.
There you
Rocky Garza Jr.
Rocky. There
I
we
do
go.
like Roki though. I think I'm going to keep that nickname for
Roki
you
is
now.
cool, like low key.
go.
Oh, look at artist Roku. We can call you Roku.
Roku.
And you can also follow me, Joe Garcia, at Two Shots Podcast, all spelled out, TWO, Two Shots Podcast. And I'd like to talk with you about anything going on in the world of sports beyond just San Antonio Spurs basketball. So make sure you follow all of us, and make sure you do follow Project Spurs. Make sure you follow Project Spurs across all their social media channels, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate your support. So for Vicky Vic and Rocky or Roku or Rocky, or how are we going to say your name now?
Whatever you want.
For Rocky Garza Jr., I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you guys for watching another episode of the Spurs Rewind. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, be kind. We're out. Peace.